Good morning. I'm Sean Manis. I'm excited to discuss English language learner success on nursing boards with you. I work with many English language learners that are going through a nursing program, and that is why I have so much interest in this area. Okay, so just 5 objectives that I would like to go through with you in this little bit of time I have with you. I'm really hoping you walk away with from this presentation with having an understanding of the future minority populations in the U.S., an understanding of the current healthcare around minority populations, the current nursing workforce shortage, an understanding of why the U.S. needs more minority nurses, and just having an all-around awareness of the issues surrounding the success of English language learner individuals on nursing boards. So let's discuss our minority population in the United States. It's projected that by 2043, we will have a majority minority nation for the first time. So the morbidity and mortality rates. Overall, racial and ethnic minorities experience higher rates of morbidity and mortality than non-minorities. The reasoning behind this might be socioeconomic differences, health-related risk factors, the environment, discrimination factors. It might also be sociocultural differences, linguistic barriers, unconscious bias, and healthcare segregation. Our minority populations in America have quite a bit of mistrust in the healthcare team. So this mistrust usually leads to refusing treatment and not complying with treatments because they just don't trust or believe what the healthcare providers are telling them. This leads to the providers then becoming less engaged in the treatment process and also withholding some of the more vigorous treatments and services. This perceived mistreatment that minority groups experience is understandable as a response to many of the negative racial experiences in other contexts. It leads to reciprocal behaviors and attitudes. Overall, though, the provider's expectations, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors are where intervention efforts should be. That is one of the biggest reasons why I am doing what I'm doing here and trying to make our success of our English language learners in nursing. If we have a majority minority population by 2048, but we don't have enough minority population nurses to help care and educate the minority population, then we're just going to keep having these mistrust behaviors going on. So kind of moving forward, we're understanding now that the relationships play a key role in the health of our nation. These relationships between the provider and the patient, it's been well researched. It's known that consistency and stability of the provider-patient relationship relates to patient satisfaction and access to care. If we're having that consistent relationship, it may help to address minority patient mistrust, especially if that relationship is with a provider who can bridge cultural and linguistic gaps. So the nursing workforce shortage in America is huge. The Bureau projects that over 500,000 nurses will need to be replaced, suggesting overall that 1.5 million nurses are necessary by 2022. With this shortage comes the need for increasing minority representation in nursing. So increasing the minorities in nursing is a priority for the American Association of College of Nursing. And this also necessitates a precedence then in nursing schools. The AACN the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, states that minority nurses are significant providers to the delivery of healthcare in the U.S. and leaders in the advancement of nursing care models that address the needs of minority populations. Some studies have actually shown us that racial understanding between the provider and patient to be connected with that patient satisfaction and adherence to treatment. We've actually had many difficulties, though. One concern, it shows a direct link between poor health outcomes for minorities and the shortage of minority healthcare providers. So now that you have a little bit of an idea of where we are in the U.S., let's talk about what's going on with our minority student academic success. So attrition rates across the U.S. are way too high in nursing schools. Some baccalaureate nursing programs are actually reaching over 50%. Now, not all of that 50% is of minority student nurses. We found that English language learners the graduate nurses have a 40% lower pass rate on the National Council licensure exam for registered nurses. 40% lower pass rate is unacceptable. Some of the main areas of concern that are having an impact on academic success include language, learning models, test taking, and cultural differences. So the language barriers is definitely one of the more common things that we can witness among our English language learning nursing students. Some studies describe how these language barriers may be causing the students to feel self-conscious about their accent, consequently less likely to engage in class participation or to communicate with their peers. Another study actually shows that the ELL students struggle with the medical terminology because it becomes an additional language. So our student nurses are already learning one new language, medicine. So imagine the English language learner students having to not only learn medicine, but also they're learning their new language of English. These four models that I wanted to discuss really kind of break things down a little bit more. So model one talks about the nature of intelligence. They say it's the same in all cultures, and then the same test can be used to measure intelligence in all cultures. The second model, the nature of intelligence is different across cultures, but the same test can be used to access intelligence. Persons in different cultures will think about and respond to the items in a different way. The test reveals differences in thinking across cultures. The third model, the nature or dimensions of intelligence, are the same across cultures, but the instruments used to measure intelligence differ because the items used to assess intelligence must be derived from within the context of the culture being studied. The last model, is both the nature or dimensions of intelligence and the ways intelligence should be measured differ across cultures. This model is actually assuming that the learning models differ amongst one native country. For instance, in the US, it is culturally acceptable to ask questions of one's teacher. However, asking questions may be considered disrespectful in another country. So test taking is not easy in nursing. They have to take a really big exam at the end of their nursing school, right after they graduate. And based on this exam, it determines whether they become licensed or not. So just adjusting to the test taking alone is pretty critical. The wordy scenarios intended to provide context, though, may further challenge the ELL students rather than accurately assessing that ELL student. So many nations utilize essay questions as primary evaluation methods, whereas in the US, we use many different methods of evaluation. So intelligence itself can be defined very differently based on what the different cultural perspectives. Traditional approaches in determining intelligence may be inappropriate for culturally and linguistic diverse students. So furthermore, cultural differences can affect communication, namely issues such as therapeutic communication, eye contact and touch, planning for patient care, and providing an appropriate education. So the traditional approaches that we've used in determining intelligence may be highly inappropriate for culturally and linguistic diverse students. The faculty and their diversity is a key component as well. The AACN states that faculty diversity is racially skewed, showing that minorities represent only 8.7% of faculty and 6.8% of deans. This skewed data may further explain some experiences of disconnect among our English language learning students. Just to give everybody a little bit of an idea of what my study will be, it's to explore the English as foreign language, or more currently, English language learner student nurse experiences of the NCLEX RN style questions, and to consider ways that these student nurses can better prepare. The aim of my research is to generate an interpretation of the experiences of these nurses and describe or identify the mechanisms they use to answer NCLEX style questions, and hopefully just to offer better ways for EFL student nurses to prepare for NCLEX style questions. In conclusion, overall, the nursing profession has found difficulty in improving the nation's minority workforce in nursing. By further exploration, we can recruit and retain minority student nurses, specifically the English language learner nurses. Currently, there is a gap in the literature that studies how English language learner students experience NCLEX style questions. Thank you so much for your time today, and I have a couple pages of references here for you if you are interested in speaking more about any of the issues with English language learning student nurse success. Please, you can contact me at maniess@umsl.edu. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.